It wasn't your fault. You were just walking through the parking lot when the accident occurred, but you saw it. And now somebody has served a subpoena on you for something called a deposition. What in the world do you do? Well, in just a moment, I'll tell you. So depositions are basically an attempt by one side or the other, or sometimes both sides, to get the testimony of people who may know things or have seen things with regard to an action that is currently under review in a court. Basically, it is absolutely the same as testifying in court, except there's no judge there. There will be a court reporter there, and there will be two lawyers there, one for both sides. And if there are multiple parties, there'll be a lawyer for every party who is there before the court, I mean. So these lawyers then have the opportunity to ask you questions under oath about what you saw and what you remember. And it can be a sometimes intimidating process, but usually when you are just a witness and not a party litigant, in other words, you're not the plaintiff or the defendant, then it's not particularly difficult. And people are not looking to have a Perry Mason moment with you. All they really want to know is what you're going to tell the judge and the jury when you go to court. Now, this is helpful for a number of reasons. First of all, if you saw the blue car run the red light and hit the red car, and you testify to that, and yes, you're sure the light was red when he ran it, then you have aided the parties in getting resolution of that case. Because if the evidence comes in the way that it likely will at the trial, one of those parties is going to have to pay the other. And a lot of times when people who are witnesses give their depositions and the evidentiary record fills up with the facts and it's easy to determine who did what and when and why, then usually the parties can reach an agreement out of court to settle the case. And that is helpful for a number of reasons. One, it doesn't tie up the courts. Two, it doesn't demand judge time. And three, it allows a better resolution than you could get in court. Because a good settlement for both sides is better than a bad litigation verdict. Why? Because a bad litigation verdict can be overturned on appeal. So if you're the defendant and you win at trial and you're thinking, wow, great, I'm glad I went to trial, that may not always be the case, because an appellate court could later overturn that verdict and you could be right back there defending yourself the second time. Similarly, if you're a plaintiff and you get a big judgment, oh boy, you may have that judgment overturned on appeal, and that would not be good for you. So a settlement is always in the best interest of the parties, and that's one of the things that witnesses do. Now, in the deposition, you'll be asked questions. Each side will get a turn of asking you questions, and you'll probably be asked the same question the same way a lot of times with different wording. For example, are you sure that the light was red? Where were you? Where were you standing? What did you see? Are you sure you could see the lens on the light? Draw me a picture here on this diagram that shows me where you're at. I need to understand exactly where you were when this happened. You get a lot of what really seems like sticky little details that you have to come up with. And a lot of times you may not remember. Here's the thing about depositions. You want to tell the truth as you know it. That's the most important rule. The second most important rule is yes, no, and I don't know are perfectly good answers. If you don't remember something, you say, I don't remember. Now here's the catch. If you later remember, you have to tell somebody. You have to tell either the plaintiff or the defendant, or both, hopefully. Because if you later remember something, then you have an obligation to speak it. And if you don't, and you go to court and you say, oh, well, later on I remembered that this happened, the judge is probably not going to let that information come in before the jury. So it behooves you to try and remember everything, But if you can't remember it, you need to tell whoever it is that you can't remember. And if you later remember, you need to contact those parties and tell them that you've had a moment of clarity and that you now believe that this happened or that happened. At the end of the deposition, when everybody's through asking you questions, and a deposition can take anywhere from 1 hour to 3 hours, it can be over in 15 minutes if necessary. If you don't really know a whole lot, it can be over in 15 minutes. But after it's over, you'll be asked if you want to read and sign the deposition. I always recommend that you read and sign the depositions because sometimes court reporters get it wrong. And most of the time, depositions these days are taken by Zoom, which means you don't actually have to be in the room with the lawyer. But even when they're not taken by Zoom, when you're in a room with a lawyer, there's usually a video camera recording it. So the likelihood that somebody will be misconstrued, on the record where you have a video record of what happened and what was said is fairly small. But I still recommend that you read and sign your deposition because you'll be charged with whatever it is in that deposition. That's what you're going to be testifying to, and you have to be sure that you are comfortable with what you said. So you'll get a copy of the deposition to read and sign if you want it. It may happen at one of the lawyer's offices, or they may mail it to you and ask you to sign it and send it back. But either way, you'll get an opportunity to review what it is you've said. And if there are errors, you have a sheet on which to note those errors. So that's the long and short of depositions. I hope you found this interesting and helpful. And if you would, I'd appreciate it if you'd mash the subscribe button and the like button so that YouTube would know that you enjoyed this presentation. It'll help me out with the algorithm, and it will mean that other people will get a chance to see some of these videos. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and have a terrific day.